I never thought I'd be writing a story like this. But here I am, staring at my phone in disbelief, trying to put into words the mess my life has become. It feels like something out of a movie, except it's all too real. Let me set the stage for you. I grew up in a house that was never really a home. My parents, they were distant at best, cold at worst. But I always had my mom, or so I thought. She was the one constant, the one person I could count on, or at least that's what I told myself for years. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, nothing fancy but safe. I could walk to the park and get lost in my thoughts or sit by the window and watch the world go by. But lately, nothing about that world feels safe. It all started when my dad passed away. I was already in my late 20s trying to figure my life out, but nothing prepares you for losing a parent. The thing about grief is, it doesn't just hit you. It shakes your whole foundation, and that's when things got weird, like really weird. Not long after the funeral, I found out that my mom had already moved on, not emotionally, but literally. She remarried almost immediately. Enter him, her new husband. I barely knew the guy, just some man she'd met in a local community group. They'd been talking for months, but I guess I didn't notice. The house felt different when I walked in after the wedding, like there was a shift in the air. The pictures that used to hang on the walls were gone. The scent of my dad's old leather chair had been replaced with something new, something unfamiliar. I tried to brush it off. After all, she was entitled to move on, right? I had my life together, and as long as she was happy, I didn't have the right to complain. But there was something about it, the speed of it all, that didn't sit right. Maybe it was the fact that he was moving in with us, along with his 2 teenage kids who barely looked up from their phones when they walked through the door. It felt like an invasion, like this man and his kids were suddenly my family. What really hit me, though, was when I came home one evening to find my mom's new husband had taken over my dad's office, the office that had been untouched since the funeral. It wasn't just that he was sitting in it, it was that he was redecorating. My dad's desk, gone. The old bookshelf replaced with a new set of shelves. All my dad's things, everything that had once meant something to me, were gone. He was gone just like that. And that's when I realized something. My mom had already started to forget, forgetting my dad, forgetting the life we'd built, and worse, forgetting me. It wasn't about moving on anymore. It was about erasing everything that had come before. I tried to talk to her about it. I wanted to understand, but every time I brought it up, she brushed me off. She'd say things like, "It's just stuff," or "We needed to clear space." But I could see it in her eyes. She was more interested in her new life than anything that came before it. And I felt like I didn't belong anymore. This tension simmered for months, like a pot on the stove just waiting to boil over. I couldn't figure out what to do with myself. I had enough of the silent treatment, enough of feeling like a stranger in my own home. It wasn't just that she'd remarried, it was how quickly everything changed. It was like I didn't even matter anymore, but I kept my mouth shut. At least I tried to. I thought I was being the bigger person, letting her have her happiness, even if it meant losing a piece of my own. Then, one night, it happened. I walked into the house after a long day of work, expecting a quiet evening, but when I opened the door, I was hit with the smell of fresh paint. The living room, the one that had been a family space for years, was completely redone. The new couches, the new art on the walls, it was all so new. Too new. I asked my mom what was going on, and she just looked at me with this confused expression like I was the crazy one. "Why does it matter, honey?" she said. "It's just a few changes." But something snapped inside me. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "A few changes?" I shouted. "Mom, this was our house. This was Dad's house. And you're just changing everything like it never mattered." She just stared at me for a second, like I was speaking a different language. Then she said it. "You're being dramatic. We need to move on." That was it. Something inside me broke, and I realized this wasn't just about furniture or photos. This was about me. I wasn't a part of her new life. I was a relic of the past she was so eager to forget. And that's when I knew. Things were never going to be the same again. The days after that conversation were a blur. I couldn't shake the words "move on" from my head. It wasn't just a phrase. It was a declaration, a separation. I'd always known that life was going to change after Dad passed, but I didn't expect it to feel like I was being erased. And I definitely didn't expect it to feel like I didn't even exist in the story anymore. At first, I tried to distract myself. Work was always a good escape. I buried myself in it, pretending everything was fine. But every time I came home, that same suffocating feeling hit me. The house wasn't mine anymore. It wasn't even hers, really. It was his, her new husband. I noticed more small things that set me off. Little comments from my mom, like how much easier it was now that there wasn't so much emotional baggage around the house, or how the kids were so excited to be part of a real family now. Real family. That stung. I remember one evening when she casually mentioned her plans for a weekend getaway. "We'll go to the cabin in the woods. The kids love it there. It's so peaceful," she said, almost like she hadn't just taken over my childhood home, my memories, my place of solace. I tried to ask if I could join, but she looked at me with that vacant smile, the one that says you're not really invited, you just don't know it yet. "Maybe next time, sweetie. We'll go together soon, I promise," she said, her tone sweet but empty. I walked away feeling the sting of rejection again, the realization that I wasn't wanted there. It wasn't about a trip, it was about everything. She was building this new life, and I wasn't a part of it. I wasn't even on the periphery of it. But then, one night, things shifted. It wasn't big, like a huge argument or confrontation. No, it was something small, a detail I almost overlooked. I came home late from work, exhausted. The house was quiet, too quiet. As I passed the kitchen, I noticed the door to my dad's old study was cracked open. I hadn't been in there since the funeral. I hadn't even wanted to go in, but something drew me toward it that night. Slowly, I pushed the door open, and there he was, her new husband, sitting at my dad's desk, flipping through some of Dad's old papers. It was like a gut punch. The sight of him in that chair, at that desk, in the space that had been my dad's sanctuary, made my blood run cold. He didn't even look up when I walked in. "Oh, hey," he said in that flat, indifferent tone. "I was just going through some of these papers. Your mom thought it'd be good to sort through them." I couldn't speak. I just stood there staring at him, my mind racing. My dad's old papers, the ones he'd kept for years. This wasn't just about sorting through old files. It was about taking over. I finally found my voice. "Why are you in here?" The words came out sharp, more angry than I intended. He shrugged. "Just helping out. Your mom said it was time for a fresh start." A fresh start. There it was again, that phrase that dug into my chest every time I heard it. I could feel the frustration bubbling up inside me, the anger that had been building for months. I had to get out of there before I exploded. "I don't need your help," I said, turning on my heel and walking out of the room, slamming the door behind me. I went to my room, locked the door, and collapsed onto my bed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash something. Instead, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. I was losing my mind, losing my place in the world, losing her. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that eventually things would settle down. But with each day that passed, it felt like I was being pushed further and further away. And then, the next morning, my mom came in. She knocked lightly on my door, but I didn't want to talk to her. I just lay there, pretending to be asleep, hoping she'd leave me alone. But she didn't. "Sweetie," she said softly, "can we talk?" I didn't answer, but I heard the door creak open. She stepped inside, standing by the bed. "I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to stop being so distant. We're trying to make things work here, and it's not helping when you act like this." I turned to face her, finally meeting her eyes. She looked tired. Tired of me, tired of everything, and I couldn't stop myself anymore. "Why are you doing this, Mom?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Why are you acting like Dad never existed? Like I never existed?" She froze, her face turning pale. But then she just sighed. "I'm not doing anything like that. I'm trying to move forward. We all need to." "Move forward," I whispered, the weight of it sinking in. "You mean forget everything that came before? Forget Dad? Forget me?" My voice was breaking now, the tears threatening to spill. "Don't say that," she said, her voice quieter now, softer. You're my child, but I need to live my life too. I'm not asking you to not live your life, I shot back. I'm just asking you to remember. She shook her head, her eyes narrowing. I can't keep dragging all this old stuff around. I need peace. We all do. And with that, she walked out. I stayed there, frozen in my bed, staring at the door. It was like a dagger to the chest hearing her say that. We all need peace. I thought I was the one she was supposed to care about. But I guess that was the point. She wasn't my mom anymore. She was his. And I was just gone. I'd like to say things got better, that after that conversation with my mom, we somehow found a way to work through it. But the truth is, things didn't get better. They got worse. Much worse. That night, I stayed in my room, staring at the walls. The weight of what my mom had said still hung over me like a storm cloud. I need peace. It kept echoing in my mind, each repetition sharp and cutting. Peace. It seemed so simple, so attainable for her. But for me, it felt impossible. I couldn't just forget. I couldn't just move on. It wasn't peace I needed. It was her. It was the mother who had once been there for me, the one who had cared about the little things, who had cared about me. But now, every time I tried to reach out, every time I tried to talk, I was met with indifference. The harder I pushed, the further she retreated. The next day, I was barely holding it together. I tried to act normal, but it was hard when every corner of the house reminded me of what I'd lost. I barely even recognized the place anymore. The familiar spaces were replaced with things I didn't care about, her things, his things. I had to get out of there. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I needed to go anywhere that wasn't home, so I decided to take a drive, clear my head. I drove aimlessly, not caring where I went. I just needed to escape the suffocating feeling of being trapped in a life that no longer felt like mine. It wasn't until I reached the edge of town, near the park where I used to walk with my dad, that I started to calm down. I parked the car and sat there for a long while, staring at the empty swings swaying in the wind. I could hear my dad's voice in my head, like he was still standing next to me, telling me everything was going to be okay. But he wasn't there. He hadn't been there for months. I was alone now, just like that. My phone buzzed, pulling me back to reality. It was a text from my mom. "Where are you? We need to talk." I stared at the message for a few seconds. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let it go, but another part of me needed answers. So I replied, "I'm at the park. What do you want to talk about?" Almost immediately, she texted back, "I want to apologize. Let's meet, please." I didn't respond right away. I sat there for a while, letting the cool air settle in around me. I hadn't seen her like this before, apologizing, genuinely apologizing. Something had changed, but I didn't know if I was ready to hear it. What if it was just another attempt to make everything seem fine, to convince me to accept what had happened without really addressing it? I decided to meet her, not because I thought it would solve anything, but because I needed to hear her say it. I needed to understand how it had come to this. I met her at a coffee shop later that afternoon. She was already sitting at a table by the window, sipping her coffee. She looked tired, older in a way that had nothing to do with her age. Her smile was small, fragile, like she wasn't sure what to expect from me. I sat down across from her, not saying anything at first. I didn't know where to begin. There was so much I wanted to say, but I wasn't sure I had the words. Finally, she spoke. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, her eyes avoiding mine. "I know I've hurt you. I've hurt all of you, you especially." Her voice faltered on the last part, like she wasn't sure if I was still listening. I didn't say anything, I just waited. "I didn't think things through," she continued. "When your father passed away, I was lost. And then I met him, and he was there, and I think I didn't know how to handle it all. I thought I could move on, that we could start fresh. But I didn't realize how much I was leaving behind. And I didn't realize that you were still here, still needing me. I'm sorry, really. I never wanted you to feel like you didn't matter." Her words hung in the air, heavy and fragile. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to tell her it was okay, that we could figure this out, but I couldn't. Not yet. "I'm not angry about you moving on, Mom," I finally said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm angry because it feels like you forgot about me, like I don't matter anymore. You're so busy with him, with your new life, that you've just—" I stopped myself, not wanting to sound like I was accusing her of anything, but the hurt was there, raw and real. She reached across the table, her hand trembling as she placed it over mine. "I didn't forget about you. I could never forget you. But I see now how much I've neglected you, how much I've been selfish, and I'm sorry for that." I stared at her hand, at the way it shook as she held mine. Something inside me softened. Just a little. Maybe she was trying. Maybe she was realizing what she had done, but part of me still couldn't let go of the hurt. The trust had been broken. It wasn't that easy to fix. "I don't know if I can just forgive you," I said, my voice quieter now. "I don't know if I can go back to how things were." "I don't expect that," she replied softly. "But I want to try. I want to make it right, whatever that looks like." We sat there for a while, neither of us speaking. There was no magical fix, no sudden change. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for us. It's funny how the smallest moments can change everything. That coffee shop meeting with my mom, as simple as it seemed, didn't fix anything. But it cracked open something between us, a space that had been sealed shut for months. There was no immediate reconciliation, no instant forgiveness, but there was a shift. The truth had started to seep out, slowly, uncomfortably, but it was there. I went back home that evening, still feeling unsettled. My mom's apology, while sincere, hadn't erased the layers of resentment I had been carrying. And I knew deep down that things weren't as simple as her saying, "I'm sorry." There was something else going on, something I still couldn't fully grasp. For the next few days, I tried to piece things together, watching my mom closely, observing how she interacted with him, with the kids, and with the house. It was like I was a stranger in my own home, constantly trying to read the atmosphere. But it never quite made sense. Her apologies felt like a Band-Aid on a wound that ran deeper than she realized. I kept asking myself, what was I missing? What was I not seeing? The answers came sooner than I expected. It was a Wednesday evening when I found the letter. It was tucked inside the drawer of my dad's old desk, the same desk her new husband had been sitting at when I had walked in months ago. I had no intention of searching through it, no desire to dig through things that didn't belong to me anymore. But curiosity, like an itch you can't ignore, took over. Maybe it was the urge to find something, anything, that could explain why she was acting the way she was. I pulled the drawer open slowly, unsure of what I'd find. And there it was, folded neatly in the corner of the drawer, a letter. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was my mom's. I unfolded it with trembling hands, the words written in neat, precise script. "I know this is sudden, but I've made up my mind. I can't continue living the way I have. I want more. I want a future that's mine. I love him, and I don't want to live in the shadow of your father anymore. I've tried to tell you, but I think you're not ready to hear it. You will never understand why I'm doing this, but I hope one day you will. Don't try to stop me. I have to move on." I couldn't breathe. I read the letter over and over, each time feeling the walls around me close in a little tighter. This wasn't just about moving on from my dad. It wasn't about starting fresh. This was about erasing everything, erasing him, erasing me, erasing the life we had built together. This wasn't a woman who was grieving. This was someone who was escaping. The truth hit me like a slap in the face. My mom wasn't just trying to find peace. She was running from everything she didn't want to confront. She wasn't moving on from my dad because she had found love again. She was running from the pain of losing him, from the guilt of how she had neglected me, from the reality of her own life that she couldn't face. The more I read that letter, the more the pieces fell into place. She hadn't been moving on. She had been running away from the past, running away from the grief that still haunted her. And in the process, she had dragged me, and everyone else, into her whirlwind of avoidance. I didn't know what to do with the letter. I couldn't exactly confront her with it. She hadn't given it to me for a reason. But I couldn't ignore it either. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the answer to all my questions about why everything felt so off. She had never truly dealt with the loss of my dad. Instead, she'd buried it under layers of new things, new people, and new plans. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the letter in disbelief. I thought back to our conversation at the coffee shop, her apology, her insistence that she just wanted to move on. I thought about how she had brushed off my concerns, how she had dismissed my feelings as if they didn't matter. Now I understood why. She wasn't ready to hear my pain because she wasn't ready to face her own. But that realization didn't make me feel better. It didn't make me feel any closer to her. If anything, it made me feel more alone. It was clear now that the person I had been looking for, the mom I used to know, was gone. She wasn't the same person anymore. And I wasn't sure who I was supposed to be in this new world she had created. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Every time she spoke, every time she tried to comfort me, I couldn't shake the knowledge of what I had learned. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether I should jump or turn around and walk away. And then, the inevitable happened. It was Friday evening when she sat me down again. Her face was pale, her hands shaking slightly. I knew what was coming before she even spoke. "Sweetie," she started, her voice tentative, "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've talked about, and I want to make things right. I know I've hurt you, and I want to fix it. But there's something I have to tell you." My heart skipped a beat. I already knew what she was going to say, but hearing it out loud made everything feel so final. "I'm moving out," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't live in this house anymore. I need space. I need to figure out who I am and what I want. And I think it's best if I do that on my own, away from here." There it was. She was leaving. She was walking away, and this time she wasn't coming back. The anger that had been simmering inside me for weeks flared up in an instant. "So that's it? You just walk away? You abandon us again? You've already left Dad, and now you're leaving me too?" "I'm not abandoning you," she said softly, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm just trying to find myself. I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not. I need to face my own demons, and I can't do that while I'm here." I shook my head in disbelief. "You're really doing this, aren't you?" She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, I know this hurts you, but I have to do this. For me." The finality in her voice made it clear. She had made her choice. And I didn't know how to feel anymore. I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to yell, to scream at her, to demand that she stay, to beg her to care enough about me to fight for us. But another part of me just felt empty, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. My mom, the person I had always turned to, the person I thought would always be there, was leaving. I stood there, silent, staring at her as she wiped her tears, as though somehow the apology, the explanation, would make it all better. But it didn't. Nothing could fix this. Nothing could bring back what we had. "Mom, you're really doing this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You're really going to walk away from everything?" She nodded again, her face twisted in sorrow. "I wish it were easier. I wish I could just stay and make everything okay, but I can't. I need to find peace, and I can't do that in this house, in this life. I'm sorry." I felt like I was suffocating. The weight of it, the finality of it, hit me all at once. She was leaving, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I took a step back, my hands trembling. "I don't even know who you are anymore," I whispered, my chest tight with grief. "You're not the mom I used to know. You're not even the person I thought you were." Her face faltered as if my words struck a deeper chord than I intended, but she didn't argue. She didn't try to explain herself anymore. She just looked at me with those tired, empty eyes, and I realized I didn't recognize her. Not in this new version of her. And maybe that's the hardest thing to accept. When the people you love change, when they evolve into someone you can't connect with anymore. "I'm sorry," she said again, her voice cracking. "I never wanted you to feel like this, but I have to do this for myself." I wanted to say more. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell her that I had been abandoned once, that my dad had left me, and now she was too. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, watching as she slowly picked up her bag, her movement slow and deliberate. She was already halfway out of the door before I could even register what was happening. "I'll be back for the rest of my things," she said, her voice distant, as though she was already a world away. "But I need to go now. I need to find myself." I watched as she left, the door closing softly behind her like she was stepping out of my life forever. And in that moment, I knew. I knew that this was it. She wasn't coming back. The house felt empty after she left, even though it had never truly felt full. The silence was deafening. I wandered through the rooms, touching things that used to belong to her, to my dad, trying to find some sort of anchor. But there was nothing. Everything felt hollow now. I spent the next few days in a daze. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was my mom, walking out of the door without a second glance. It wasn't just the loss of her presence that hurt. It was the loss of the person I had thought she was. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. Had I missed something? Could I have done more to make her stay? Or had this all been inevitable, the slow unraveling of something that could never be fixed? But no matter how much I tried to make sense of it, it didn't change the reality of it. She was gone, and I was alone again. A week later, she called. I didn't pick up at first. I wasn't sure what I could say to her anymore. What was there left to say? But then, she left a message. "Sweetie, I know things are hard right now, but please understand. I'm doing this for me. I have to find my own way. I need you to be okay with this. I need you to forgive me, even if you don't understand why I'm doing this." I couldn't listen to the rest of it. I hung up the phone and sat in silence, the weight of her words pressing down on me like a brick. Forgive her? How could I? How could I forgive someone who had so easily turned their back on me, on everything we had been through? It wasn't about forgiveness. It was about loss. It was about the fact that no matter how hard I tried, I could never get back what we had, and I didn't know if I could ever accept that. A few weeks passed, and life, as it tends to do, moved on. But I didn't. Not really. I was stuck in this limbo of grief and anger, trying to understand what had happened, trying to figure out where to go from here. I spent time with friends. I buried myself in work. But every time I came home, I couldn't escape the emptiness. The house, which once felt like home, now felt like a stranger's place. There were no sounds of laughter, no familiar scents, no feeling of warmth. It was just me, wandering through empty rooms. I tried calling her a few more times, but each time she answered, it was like talking to a stranger. She was distant, detached, like I wasn't really her child anymore. It was heartbreaking, and every conversation just left me feeling more hollow, more abandoned. And then one day I got a letter. It wasn't from her. It was from my dad's lawyer. I hadn't heard from them in months, not since the funeral. But there it was, sitting on my doorstep, waiting for me to open it. The letter was short, but it changed everything. "As per your father's will, the house has been left in your name. You are now the sole beneficiary. However, if you wish to sell or transfer the property, the decision is yours." I read it twice, then 3 times, trying to make sense of it. My dad had left me the house. He had left me this. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I thought I'd get nothing. Maybe I thought it would all go to her. But he'd left it to me. For a moment, I just stared at the letter, holding it in my hands, letting it sink in. My dad's presence was still here, in this house, in these walls. It was like he was reminding me one last time that I was not alone. That despite everything my mom had done, despite the emptiness, I still had a part of my past. I still had him. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe this was my chance, to let go of the past, to take control of my future. Maybe it was time to move forward, to rebuild something for myself. I looked at the house one last time, taking it all in, every room, every corner, every memory. And as I stood there, I made a decision. I was going to leave too, but I wasn't running from the past. I was walking toward my future. Story 2. It's time to raise a chair. In the Or Lounge today, we have another fantastic story for you. Yes. Imagine learning that your fiancé has been too preoccupied to tell her best friend that you are engaged. The same buddy who was kindly sent to the level of merely friends after attempting to leave the friend zone by declaring his everlasting devotion. It quote Judgment Day in the Art Lounge today. Is it my fault that I broke up with my fiancé? For disclosing her lack of engagement to her closest friend? 3 weeks ago, I, a 27-year-old man, and my now ex-fiancée, a 30-year-old woman, were engaged. After 5 years of dating, I finally have the funds to offer her a wedding. She desired. We were talking about our guest list 3 days ago when I asked her if she would want to invite her best buddy Dot. His name is James. 30 years old, male. It would be wonderful to have her closest buddy at the wedding, so I thought I could even cover James's travel costs, as they have been friends for 10 years, even though he lives in a different state. She declined, stating that she wanted it to be a family gathering and that bringing him would require a lot of work. I persisted after she repeatedly said that James was like family to her. I didn't even tell him we were engaged, she replied, getting irritated. I was surprised by it. After a few hours, she began to stall me when I tried to inquire why, so I left her alone. She continued to refuse to tell me when I attempted to ask her again why she hadn't informed him we were engaged, and I acknowledged that my insecurities overcame me. James had previously admitted that he had affections for her, but she rejected him and essentially friend-zoned him. She informed me, however, that it always sounded as though she had him on standby, something her ex-partners and I both realized. Online, she wed him. With the same transmog and other such gimmicks, they consistently made their World War I half-characters appear to be a pair. He was always there for her when she got into arguments with her ex-boyfriends, among other things. I told her it made me uneasy and that she may as well consider herself single if she didn't intend to inform him. I wouldn't marry someone who couldn't be honest. Although I was somewhat immature, she acted in a way that was much more juvenile. She showed me her phone and wrote him a text that said something like, "Hey, Jesse, you know I got engaged, but not anymore." I instructed her to gather our belongings and go from my home. She has been phoning me ever since she left, but I won't respond. You reportedly told my mom that I was a jerk for sending goods for such a foolish thing, so she phoned me. Am I the jerk then? I apologize for the error in the title as well. Hello, everyone. I prepared some dinner, and I believe I will follow a specific user's suggestion. By the way, that's a cool username. I'll invite her to get together so I can view their communications and those of another person. I already have little contact with my mother, but once I have things straightened up, I will make my own decisions. I am thus sort of promising an update. Let's quickly gather a few comments. Not the ale first. She has a purpose for keeping her marriage intentions a secret from her best friend. Most women, after all, consider marriage to be one of life's major events, and they inform everyone they know about it unless it would interfere with anything else. Boyfriends detest learning that their partner is getting married. You know, someone else adds something. I'm very certain that my wife was on the phone the night I proposed before I ever heard her. In fact, she called as many individuals as she could think of. Right? Adds another. When she began phoning individuals, Mai was still nude. The following individual states, earlier that day, my husband and I had attended a friend's wedding. Later, lying in bed and watching TV. We ought to get married, he remarked. He had already made mention of it, but broke it off. I thought, yeah, right. All okay, of course. I'm going to call my mom, he said. This time, I knew he was being really serious. I can tell he meant it since he's not a mama's boy. I waited till he placed her on loudspeaker and phoned her. I then made phone calls. 14 years of dating. 1 child, 10 married. I understand then. So says another member of the community. Your former fiancé? I didn't want to mention you to her partner, unless your multiplicity seems like a compelling excuse to call it quits on an engagement. If you wish to verify that she was unfaithful, offer to have lunch with her. Tell her she wants a chance with you when you arrive. You saw every communication she sent him on social media, and she needs to unlock the phone. I'm confident you'll discover more than enough to demonstrate that leaving is the wisest decision. Another person adds their voice. That is still screwed up, even if you are in a relationship. Cheating and lying. Being polyamorous necessitates being truthful and open in every connection. The former individual rejoins the conversation. You may establish rules with poly based on what you and your partner agree upon. I know a few of folks who have had successful polyamorous relationships. Don't ask, don't tell. They have the freedom to choose to be that way. I could only imagine how this might be acceptable at that point. I included the exception for that reason. However, Some poly individuals don't accept, inquire, or disclose until there is a healthy connection. And in response, I advocate letting individuals choose how they want to be in a relationship, just as you want others to let you make your own decisions. I have 16 years of experience as a polyamorous person. Although I like a multifunctional kitchen table, I acknowledge that everyone has different preferences. Another comment from the community. One lady who says she loves you but really doesn't respect you and thinks you should be in bad relationships is someone you've wanted to break up with. Unfortunately, you already have another woman that meets that criteria. It will be more difficult to get rid of your mother. The a-hole was not the judgment. Your fiancé claims that James is like family, but it seems that he is the type of family that isn't even aware of the wedding or invited. They're only pals, though, aren't they? She then refuses to talk to you about it when you ask here, something doesn't quite add up. All right? Perhaps she preferred that he be the groom and didn't want him to attend the ceremony. That's what I said. Update. After a day. Hello, everyone. After speaking with my still ex-fiancé, I just returned home. Additionally, a lot of individuals want updates. Here it is. However, I would want to make some clarifications. As said in my initial article, I urged her to move in since it was close to her place of employment, and I pay for the house because I purchased it before we started dating. She had to go to work, but since I work in technology, I work from home. To make her commute easier, I paid for her car. Furthermore, her pay is appalling. I didn't see anything wrong with that because I was her partner. In spite of everything, I believed she was the one. She's funny and intelligent. Despite our chemistry, I felt deceived by the update. We agreed to talk about how to keep our relationship intact when we first met at a coffee shop. That's what she believed anyway. I requested to view their messages as soon as we were seated. She instantly became defensive and claimed to have erased everything. Still, I asked to see her phone. She broke down in tears, cried ugly, and begged me to stop. My decision to leave the relationship had already been made at that moment. But I was intrigued, damn it. She waited a good 20 minutes to give me her phone. Lots of tears. Even a waitress inquired about her well-being. I read the messages then. There was no infidelity, such as exchanging nude photos before declaring their love for one another. What I read still hurt, though. I was the subject of a lot of nonsense. They texted me and said I was a horrible person, criticizing my interests. I enjoy playing video games and watching professional wrestling, and I've been accused of not being a genuine guy because of these things. However, two subjects drew my attention. In the first, she complained that she didn't want to be in a relationship and informed him that she was having problems getting hard, which frustrated her. Yes, I was having trouble sleeping since I was depressed after my father's death 6 months prior, and the object that got trapped. I recall assuring her that if she chose to quit her work once we were married, I would support us both. I suppose it has to do with it, however, I'm not sure whether she took this the wrong way. To be honest, I have no idea. By the time I returned her phone, she was already defending her actions, claiming that he served as a sort of therapist for her. "Don't you complain about meeting your friends?" she inquired. "No, I don't," was my straightforward response. She broke down once more. I inhaled deeply before saying, "Just return the ring to me." Contrary to what several people said, I did not have the ring with me. Despite some hesitation, she gave it to me. I got up and told her to stop bothering me and to remove my number. I requested her mother to come to my house to take up her daughter's belongings. Her mother is a decent individual. As I type this, it just dawns on me that I will miss her. She didn't ask many questions, but she understood why I ended it. Honestly, I'm relieved she didn't. I didn't give my mother a call. She did something irrelevant to this topic, so I just blocked her. She never had my back in anything, I just realized. I was always attempting to save a mother-son connection that had already collapsed. Before I go, I would like to make it clear that I never objected to her having friends of any kind, including men. People will cheat. Pals aren't pals. When I was a teenager, I recall my dad saying something to me. "Opportunity creates the thief," he used to say. However, I disagree with that. Anyway, I'm going to figure out what to do with the wedding money because I have the next 2 weeks off from work. Alcohol and drinks. After playing the games, watch Monday Night Raw. Calm. P.S. I apologize for any errors. The title has been corrected. Edit. A few folks are inquiring about the vehicle. She was involved in 2 collisions with this 2015 Nissan Versa. She rear-ended someone on both occasions. I didn't like the automobile. Weak engine. Overall, the inside feels shoddy and cheap. She can keep the piece of garbage, and I don't care. I would be more successful if I threw it down a cliff and sold it. Too little update has been edited. A few hours earlier, her mother gave me a call to see how I was doing and to ask when she might come get her belongings. We talked about the automobile, and she essentially told me that I couldn't let her daughter have it as I had already paid for it. It would be impossible for 2x to sustain. Therefore, until I can sell the automobile, I will retain it. Please assist me. Additionally, some individuals referred to the article as phony, since they said that I wasn't a real man who played World of Warcraft. That's my fault, to be honest, because I wasn't very explicit. In other texts, they made fun of me for playing games, but the true guy issue was more about the professional wrestling pastime than the Wahhabi gaming. I recall James saying in one of the Life is Strange series, "How could a grown African man play such a girly game and cry?" I do weep when I play Life is Strange. Red Dead Redemption 2 also brought me to tears. I still get emotional when I see the "I'm terrified" cut sequence. I suppose I'm a whiner. I also wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who messaged me to discuss gaming and wrestling. I was able to clear my head of everything thanks to it. I plan to respond to everyone, but I haven't yet. I'll notify you all if anything occurs. Be decent individuals. Let's gather some further feedback from the community. James claims in verse 1 that you're not a true guy since you play video games and make a World of Warcraft persona to fit a female who hit him in the friend zone. Galactic levels of cock-fueled irony are a backup plan option. I hope you spent money, time, and effort on someone who didn't deserve it. It is regrettable, but it is possible. Give yourself time to recover and grow into your greatest self. Best wishes. His irony is powered by his astronomical quantities of cock, according to the next comment. Aw, well done on it. Two good-looking males appear to be playing with this chick. More than that, probably. She doesn't cock with her friends or her ATM. One more thing to say. She didn't want to be stranded with you, therefore avoid the ballistic missile. So why not weep for a moment? She had no desire. She will miss the wedding, though. That was her desire. Let's see if she can get one from her best friend's guy. Man, oh man. On our world, there are 4 billion women. Have patience. She will find a way to get to you. Not this piece of shit, though. Playing video games is said to make you a fake guy. However, a fresh update 10 days later is James, who is playing World of Warcraft as her virtual spouse and feels like a therapist after somehow trashing you. Hello, everyone. I have been using this account to share my tale for a few days now, and while certain things have happened, this is a good update. First of all, I would want to express my gratitude to everyone who replied to my direct messages and left kind remarks. I appreciate you, everyone, and it felt great. I was moved to tears by some of your heartfelt words. Second, I saw that my 2 earlier postings were on a YouTube video featuring a man who reads Reddit posts. And my most recent update was on a specific channel and subreddit that I frequently visit, which surprised me. However, I would want to thank everyone who told me their experience, offered advice, or just said I was a good man. It was great to read your messages before writing this. I also want to state that I gave my engagement a lot of thought and that I have no regrets at all. Yes, things did not work out well and she did not treat me well at the conclusion. However, I just don't despise her or want her to fail. We experienced several positive moments. I was pleased with her, and once more I genuinely believed that she was the one who feared that I would suffer more harm than she did, to the latest information. We spoke for hours after her mother returned to get her belongings. It was therapeutic. On her shoulders I sobbed. We chuckled. She said I would always be welcome in her house and that I meant a lot to her family. Hearing her say those things to me was really satisfying. She asked me if I wanted to inquire about my ex before she departed. Curious, I inquired about her well-being. She's trying to act stoic, but I know my daughter, she said. This is not going well for her. That's all I said. She hugged me and walked off toward the car. I quote, am going to write it off on my taxes and donate it. What excites me, though, is that I'll be attending Royal Rumble. Even though I've never watched SmackDown or Raw live, I now have the extra money. I'm going to reward myself once again. I appreciate everyone getting in touch. I apologize to drama fans that there isn't an unwelcome pregnancy, a brawl, mayhem, or a narrative twist in this update. My life is simply really dull, to be honest. Be kind to others. Before we conclude, let's gather a few community remarks. Let me start by saying that I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. Have fun with Royal Rumble and continue to look for yourself. After everything, you deserve to have some fun. The next individual states that in an attempt to hedge her bets with her closest friend, your ex blew a nice day. Her mother is aware that she blew a good thing. And one last thing, you could not have asked for a better ending. Hatred for recovery. Congratulations! Keep up the good work and keep being your own best friend. And now, my ideas. This update seems like a huge victory, man, putting peace before resentment. Donating the vehicle. Bravo on making the decision and getting back in touch with those that truly care about you. Those are sound, well-reasoned choices. All right? Furthermore, it sounds like you have a very steady, dull existence. No bullshit, no drama. You alone, investing in what brings you joy. Is there a best friend of your partner that is a bit too close? Tell us about your experiences in the comments section below. And thanks for coming to the lounge with us today. To ensure you don't miss our next video, please press the notification bell, like, and subscribe. Till the next occasion. Additionally, kindly return your chair to its original location.